the victim and the perpetrator roles are these very clear kind of archetypes that we are identifying and seeing clear as day in our world, in our media, in our governments, in ourselves. And it is here for us to fully see, to fully claim, to fully alchemize and transcend. And so, you know, it is, again, really beyond gender, but I'm sure that because of the kind of ways that we have been conditioned into our gendered roles, there is some like generalization that applies. And in general, women have kind of taken on the archetype, if this is kind of this big movie of life, we have taken on as women playing the role of the victim. And generally, women deeply struggle to say no. And for some really good reasons, too. Because of this paradigm of violence and force, we have become deeply afraid to say no. Actually afraid for our lives sometimes, or what might happen to us in a very physical, tangible way. And men too, I know. And so we have to recognize what we are up against and the collective trauma that we are healing from our ancestors, and even in our own experience in this life, or if you identify with other lifetimes. And yet, in the identification of this, and in the like grieving of this, and the sacred rage of this, and all of the developmental stages of grief that we must go through, we also can come to that place of recognizing this role of victim that I have played no longer serves me. And I'm a sovereign being, and I do not give permission to anything outside or connected in my cells that does not serve me. I am a sovereign being. I'm a node of that. And we are really learning to actually take off this old lens and even like some old hearing aids and put on some new ones, to be able to even hear somebody share their desire, like a man to share his desire with me, and for me to actually take off that old lens and just hear this man is sharing a desire with me. Because my old lens, I hear his sharing of desire as a demand, even if there is not any demand energy in it. And there could be some demand energy in it because he's coming from this paradigm too. But even when it's not there, I still may be listening and seeing through that lens of subtly, I don't have a choice. And I can give a very vulnerable, real example of this in our relationship. A couple of years ago, we went through a big crucible. Some of you may have witnessed some of that on social media. And inherently, when I trace back all the way to the kind of the root of when this crucible, the train took off, it all traced back when Joshua shared a desire with me to open our relationship. And instead of fully checking in with all parts of me, I collapsed. And I thought in some way that I didn't have a choice. And I said yes when I was really a no. And it caused a great deal of pain in our relationship. And so there's very deep ways in which me saying yes when I am actually a no not only does me damage, but also causes harm on my relationship and in the current of life.
Yeah. And I get to take a lot of responsibility for that space as well, because I really wanted her to say yes. And so I dissociated from the ways that she was physically or emotionally saying no, even if she was verbally saying yes. I accepted her obviously compromised yes. I participated in her victimizing herself, even while I was being impeccable with my word and being impeccable with her word. I was not being energetically impeccable as a man. And I can feel the grief. And I just taps into the river of pain that we both rode as a result of our compromises, of our lack of impeccability with ourselves and with the current of life of our relationship. And so as men, as the masculine, and many of the men in the room embodying more of that energy, we don't want to hear no. And so some part of us is programmed to dissociate or coerce in order to get what it is that we want. It's not personal. It is ancient. It is an ancient force that is literally activated in our DNA. But it is a force that we are here to transmute, and will only do so as we become impeccable stewards. And we come to understand that nobody wins when anybody compromises themselves. Nobody wins when anyone compromises. I can never benefit from her loss. It's literally metaphysically impossible for me to benefit from her harm or loss. And yet we're emerging slowly and painstakingly from a system that has trained us deeply that that's just how life is. It's a dog-eat-dog world. It's a competition. And the more I learn, not just at a verbal level, but at an energetic level, to fully pre-approve her no. And to celebrate her no, the more we become exquisite allies in getting our needs met. Exquisite allies. And the more I pre-approve that no, and the more I can celebrate her deep sovereignty, the easier it is for her to know what her yes and no is. She can feel it more clearly. There's not so much traffic. There's not so much sort of turbulence in getting to what it is that she really wants. And we're undoing this together. We're unraveling it from both sides. I'm sorry, just the perpetrators cannot end this cycle. Just the victims cannot end this cycle. We all have to unravel it from our own sides and feel it in our own DNA, feel into those impulses in ourselves. And so today we're going to practice. We're going to ritualize a practice. Because every single time you said yes when you meant no, it didn't go away. It didn't just go away. There's no trash can for that. It's still in your body right now. And I want to invite all of us to take a breath into where all of those no's might have gone in our body. Just close your eyes for a moment and feel into your own body